Welcome to the show, guys. We're continuing on with the Impact series, moving on to the Seattle Seahawks. I've got one of my friends here. He's a brand ambassador. He lives and breathes Seattle. He knows them. He sleeps them. He talks about them in his sleep. His wife gets angry at him in the middle of the night because he's sleeping Seahawks all the time, screaming it all the time. It's Norb Cam. Am I over-exaggerating here, or do you love the Seahawks?
Oh man, yeah, I've been a fan since I was a little kid. I've been a season ticket holder for a long, long time. Been at both the last two Super Bowls, so I've been through the highs, I've been through the lows, and man, this has been one of the craziest years we've had with Russell Wilson being gone, and so it's a crazy time to be a Seahawks fan. But man, you know what? You stick with them through thick and thin, man. So I'm as excited about this year as ever.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your channel, how to find you, what makes you a super fan, a brand ambassador? Why would you, and again, fantasy fans are shallow. We're just like, give us information. We want to know, we want to hear from the best. What makes you credible enough to give us Seahawk information?
Well, you can find me on my handle is Norb Cam, Norbcam. So that's Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. And yeah, man, I follow the team. I just everything I do on my social media is just everything about the Seahawks from a multi entertainment perspective. So besides talking about them, I also do music videos about them. I do game reactions in the stadium. I do sketches from the comedy insights and things like that. So I just have a lot of fun with it. So if you like Seahawks stuff and you just like to get a little fresh perspective that not everybody does the same way, because a lot of people talk, but I do a lot more than just talk about them. So, but I'm a diehard fan, man. Been there for a long time, and yeah, good or bad, going to be with this team, screaming my lungs out, no matter, who's at quarterback or who's at what position or who's at coach, been there longer than most of these guys have been. So,
I'm
I'll be
actually,
there.
so Norb Cam on, there he is all dressed up there. He's all hardcore. What is that, a green wig?
Oh yeah, it's my signature hair thing, man. It's this green hair wig thing that I put on for the games. Got to get the face paint on. So yeah, that's my transformation from Bruce Wayne to Batman, basically for games.
You're
So,
crazy, and super fan.
but yeah, that's a great game. That was the NFC Championship win against the Packers. That video you're just popping up there, but hope to be back there sometime. I just don't know if it's going to be anytime real soon, but you never know. Got to keep dreaming on.
Follow Norb Cam Twitter on Instagram. Now let's dive into this because I got so many questions, especially for offense and fantasy relevance. So let's talk outlook, but let's start off with the quarterback situation. I'm looking at it, man, and I'm looking at Geno Locke or Drew Smith or whatever you want to call the situation. It doesn't look pretty on paper. Like, I'm not going to lie. Is this a solution? Is this a long-term solution? Is Drew Locke ready to go? Who's starting? Like, do you have any inside information on what the quarterback situation is? Or are we going to pick up a free agent like a Mayfield or someone like a Garoppolo who's lingering around? I know he's talking to Carolina now. Mayfield is, from what I hear. But I'd like to get your feedback on the quarterback situation.
Well, I guess we'll start with the first question: Geno Smith or Drew Lock. I think those are their actual names. My feeling is these guys are not the long-term solution. Now, there's the official word. If you hear Pete Carroll and John Schneider talk, they blow up Drew Lock like, oh, we see the potential. We would have drafted him, if we didn't have Russell, So do I buy that? I'm always hopeful, of course, that he'll shock us all and just come out slinging and like, whoa, where's this guy been this whole time? But if you look at his stats, you look at his time with the Broncos, obviously not that impressive. I just don't think that either of these two. I think they'll be good interim guys, and just managing the games and just keep us afloat while we build up everything else around them. But I just don't see it being the long-term solution. I mean, this day and age, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you got to have a franchise quarterback.
Yep.
I just don't see either of these guys being that, unless I'm completely shocked. And so is Seattle going to go and make some kind of move for, like you mentioned, Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield or somebody else? I would be surprised if they dropped some bomb and suddenly brought somebody in. I think they're going to roll with what we got with these guys, see what they have. And if they do bring something more, then all the more of a positive, thing in the right direction. But I think they're really looking to the quarterback position next year, where there's going to be a ton of talent coming out of college. And I think they're just looking, they're going to have some high draft picks next year. I'm just thinking it's kind of like a no win, no lose situation. Because if we suck this year, well, that just means we improve our draft status next year and giving us an even better shot at one of the better quarterbacks next year. And if we are surprisingly good this year, then, well, that's great. But I still think they're looking for a solution at quarterback next year. So I think these guys are just for right now to get us through this year.
I just had Troy Rink on the show. He is the Broncos brand ambassador, and he's really pumped about Russell Wilson. I mean, like absolutely ecstatic, saying that Russell Wilson's going to get a revival, MVP, that type of thing. You know Russell better than anybody. How do you think he ends up in Denver now? Do you think he's going to ignite his career again? And was he losing his passion and his drive with Seattle? Is there any bitterness there, or do you think he just wanted out? I think he was running stale, right? Like, how do you describe that situation?
Well, personally, I took the Russell trade pretty hard because there was a lot of rumors about that. There's been for the last couple of years now that, oh, Russell Wilson is looking to go. And I was one of those guys always defending, no. Russell's, he's an all Seahawks guy. He's going to be here in Seattle for his career.
Right.
And I kept arguing that to the end. And so when it finally went down, I was heartbroken. I was devastated. I was pissed. I didn't know who to get mad at, but I was not happy for a long time. And the more I started to dive into what actually happened, I think it was a combination of Russ being, not feeling connected on the same page with Pete Carroll's philosophy. I think also he's, he started making his legacy more important than necessarily staying with this team. And I understand that, he's never gotten an MVP vote. I think he wants to be in that discussion, and he wants to be paid like the most expensive player. So he wants to get accolades like the one of the greatest players, and he's not getting it here. So I felt like he decided to jump ship and go someplace where he thought he could become that. Now, obviously, the Broncos they've rolled out the orange carpet, not the red carpet, the orange carpet for him. They've handed him the keys to the city.
Yeah, his own office. His own office in the stadium and stuff like
He's got everything. And the Broncos have said, we'll give you everything that Seattle didn't give you. So they're, so obviously, and they haven't paid him yet. That's a whole nother issue. It's already blown up before they've even played a snap. They're already talking about, Russell's wanting to be the highest paid player in history, 60 million plus. Yeah, crazy 300, and so obviously there's a lot of speculation. Is he going to be able to do that? Here's my thought. One is that he's under tremendous pressure. When he came, obviously, to Seattle, nobody expected him to do anything. Third-round quarterback. They already had Matt Flynn locked up with big contract. They just assumed he'd be the starter, and Russell stole it from him. So he kind of came in as kind of surprised everybody. Well, now it's the complete opposite in Denver. Denver expects him to take them to the promised land. Now, maybe not this year, but I'm sure that if they don't at least make the playoffs or at least get out of the first round, not be one and done, I think that's going to be disappointing, especially on a year where after this year, they're going to have to talk about paying him big bucks. So there's a lot of pressure for him to deliver for everybody from the manager to the owner to, and got brand new owners over there too. So I know that everybody in Denver is just hyped up, but of course, when you're at this stage, all you have is hype. Right? You're getting a guy with this, track record. It's all great. But the reality is there were definitely certain things that Russell's game, after watching for 10 years, we saw the Russell of 2012 when he first came here and the evolution of what he does and doesn't do well. What we've seen over time is that Russ loves the deep ball. He probably throws one of the prettiest deep balls. And, but you need a line to protect him for that. You need receivers who can catch. But Russ also kind of does his own thing. He often goes on his own script. He'll change plays. And I think the most frustrating thing we had for him in Seattle is that he wouldn't do what these guys like Tom Brady would do. And that's just, don't forget about going 20 yards. Just get 5 and let's move the chains a little bit. Yeah. And Russ, for the longest time, would just not seem to want to hit that check down guy. Now, will that change in Denver? I don't know, but that was one of my biggest issues. And of course, the other one is Russ, he got sacked a lot. He was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the game. Yeah. And a lot of people blame the offensive line, which a lot of times it's their fault, but it's also a Russ thing because he's always looking for the deep ball. So the longer you're back there trying to look for that next level, or you spin out of the pocket to try to, and that's a lot of Russell's game is to get out of the pocket and throw out from outside the pocket. But I think a lot of people figure that out. So they try to keep him contained. And when he does spin out, they kind of know his moves now. And they also know he's not as fast as he used to be. So he's not quite as elusive as he was 10 years ago. I mean, we all get older. We all get a little bit slower. He's gotten a little thicker. So, he's got some things that he can't do as well as he used to. So some of those tricks, I think he can't get away with like he did before. So, unless he learns to adapt his game on some of those things I just mentioned, not holding on so long, hitting the checkdowns. He might struggle with some of the same things. So we'll find out in that first game. I'm really looking forward to our rematch, Seahawks versus Broncos, when he comes into town. It'll be one of the most hyped games in Seattle we've had in a long time. But a lot of people, going to cheer him. A lot of people are probably going to boo him. I'm going to be somewhere in between. So
sounds like a little bitterness, because the impression I'm getting from Troy is like he's pumped. Like, we've got Russell, we've got the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you're kind of feeling that maybe it's not the same Russell Wilson we've had in Seattle. We had the best Russell Wilson. That's the feeling I'm getting. Am I sensing a little bit of anger here or hostility?
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm definitely bitter, and I feel people ask me, "How you doing now?" Like, are you over it? And I say, well, right now I'm over it. But it's because nothing's happening. Everybody's laying low. But come September, when the games happen, I'm going to be watching all the news and social media about the return of Russ and all this stuff. I mean, every time I see him do something, Broncos country, let's ride. It's like, oh God, I want to puke. So
I don't blame you.
I hate it.
You touched on something that everybody's having the same discussion about, the Atlanta beat writer. Everyone's saying the same thing. It's very hard to make it anywhere in the NFL if you don't have that franchise quarterback. And I'm looking at this right now, man. And Russell is clear cut. He's one of the best there is. Like, there's a lot of weird situations going on. Sam Darnold in Carolina, we don't know if he's going to stay there. Justin Fields, he's pretty new, right? We're not sure if what he's capable of. Just look at Davis Mills in Houston. Like, what the heck's that? Like, who the hell knows with that? So many situations. Tua, is he the real deal? Who else is there that's really weird? Zach Wilson, he's come out and said that I'm going to be one of the best in the league. Mitch Trubisky, like, you guys, like, there's so many situations where, and Ryan Tannehill, like, I don't think he's going to get them as far as maybe the first round of the playoffs. So it is hard, especially being a diehard Seahawks fan, to have your guy, the guy that you've built that connection with, been watching for all those years, leave to Denver out of all people. It just hurts,
Oh yeah, and it feels a lot like watching an ex-girlfriend, because you have this love affair and you've spent 10 years together. I feel like we've been married for 10 years, and he never leave, and then he goes and gets divorced, and now everything I see is like he's with his new relationship, with his new girlfriend, new wife, or whatever. I mean, that's kind of the feel. Like, that was supposed to be my guy saying all that corny stuff on social media. That's my corny quarterback, but now he's being corny with somebody else. So, so that it definitely hurts to know that he's doing this with somebody else and is acting all excited to be there and everything. Like, I should say, maybe he really is excited to be there, but it's frustrating because I felt he was saying that stuff for us. So yeah, it's hard not to get frustrated, but what can you do, right? If they don't want to stay, they don't want to stay. So
I appreciate the truth. And I was because when I first got into fantasy, like, hard, I was 2012. I started getting into it, like, hardcore, like, playing, not giving advice, but just playing it. And Andrew Luck was one of my first quarterbacks. It was that whole rush, Wilson, Luck, when they kind of came into the league. And when Luck retired, man, like, it just out of nowhere, it really genuinely hurt me, because I really enjoyed watching the Colts. I thought he was so much upside with him. So I kind of, to some small degree, not as much on your level, but I kind of know what it feels like to lose that quarterback that you really like. So I want to move on with Russell real quick, but one more thing. He was at a Colorado hockey game. Was he ever a fan of Colorado? Or is he now just because he's there a fan now?
Not that I know of. All of a sudden he's just, Colorado Rockies and Colorado this, Colorado that. I mean, I get it. He's an ambassador. He's playing for a bigger picture here, because he's looking at his life beyond football as a player. Because I know he wants to own a team one day, and shoot, he'll probably get into politics and be a senator or something like that eventually. I'm sure he wants something that ambitious. So he's doing all the right things. I mean, I'd do the same thing, I'm sure, if I was him. You're going to play for this new community, do everything you can to make them love you, so that push comes to shove, everyone's going to go, well, Russ does want $60 million, but he's such a good guy. Let's give it to him.
he's hanging out with the president.
At least you don't have to worry about him having legal troubles with masseuses and things like that. So when you look at the money they're spending on that Cleveland's got, that's a whole nother mess. The Russell Wilson thing looks like a pretty good deal. So again, that's part of the bitterness, because we lost that guy who was such a great guy in our community. But now I got to root against him because he's not on my team anymore.
Yeah, let's move on from him. We could talk about him all day. By the way, on a side note, I do love him for fantasy this year. He's great value coming off in like the 7th round. I'm all over Russell this year. I think he will thrive this year. That's my 2 cents. Okay. Secondly, let's move on to the running backs here. By the way, the O-line in the quarterbacks, how much is it improved from last year? And let's kind of move on and jump the gap to wide receiver here. Is the O-line going to give enough time for Drew Lock to throw to Metcalf and Lockett? How relevant are they going to be in comparison as they were last year with Russell?
All right, so the Seahawks offensive line is an interesting case right now because we really have no idea how they're going to be. But one thing we do know is they addressed the offensive line during the offseason. So they got a rookie left tackle, and we've got a new right tackle. And we got a new center as well, an established center. So the big thing is we could be starting 2 rookie tackles. So, but I think these guys are guys who can be good for the long term. The question is, how much will they struggle in their first year? But they did come from, passing offenses. So I feel like from a pass protection standpoint, this is kind of playing to their strengths. And this should be a benefit to whether it's Geno Smith or Drew Lock. I feel like the pass protection will be better. And with these guys being more pocket passers, really, this is kind of a benefit to the offensive line because when it was Russell would always be kind of unpredictable because he's moving out of the pocket and escaping and then make it harder for the lineman to protect him, which results in a lot of holding calls and sacks outside the pocket and things like that. So I feel like the Seahawks line is definitely on the mend and moving in the right direction. They're putting the resources to it. The big question is just how much of a learning curve they're going to have to go through in this first year with a couple of new guys straight out of college. Right. And so if these guys can play to what their card looks like on paper, I think we're going to have a pretty good offensive line just starting from the ground up and for years to come. It's just the growing pains. That's the big thing we don't know because it's not like this is a line that's played together for 4 or 5 years and are gelled. We got a lot of new guys playing together, and sometimes it takes a while for those guys to gel. So it might be rusty in the first 3, 4, 5 games to kind of get in sync. But then I feel like they're going to get their stuff together, and ultimately it'll work out for whoever's back there quarterback. So I think like at least from a protection standpoint, it's going to be definitely an improvement.
All right, now looking at wide receivers, like I was asking, Metcalf, Lockett, again, for fantasy, they don't appeal to me at all this year, just simply because of your quarterback situation. Do you think they get a lot of volume? Do you think they're putting up similar fantasy numbers or, statistical numbers they did last year? Or are we going to see a significant decline? And what would your best guess be on those guys?
I would probably say you're on the right track to not put a lot of stock in these guys because while DK Metcalf he's kind of holding out right now, didn't go to a mandatory camp because he's coming off a foot surgery and he's looking for that next contract, which he will get paid since receivers right now are getting paid out the nose, 25 mil.
Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk. I know he started the whole thing.
Yeah.
But Tyler Lockett is still, I think, our best receiver on the team. DK, number 2. I think we're going to be a much more efficient offense. I think he's going to do the stuff that Russell wasn't willing to do, which is to throw the short passes and not so much the deep balls. But for fantasy, that's not necessarily a great thing because I think the yardage is probably just not going to be there. The attempts will probably be down, and I think they're going to lean on the running game more just to help out the quarterbacks. And because I think we've got some exciting guys at running back this year. Knock on wood, these guys stay healthy. But for that reason, I think it's going to be definitely more of, and this is still Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's still kind of a mostly run, play good defense kind of guy. So, which is a lot of the reason why I think Russell wanted to leave because he wanted to get those gaudy numbers from the passing game, which is not what Seattle does. So, yeah, I think even though we're going to be better and more efficient, I don't think we're going to have lots of volume and lots of yardage. I think it's going to be definitely less than what we've seen from when we had Russ.
Last time, I'm going to ask you about Russell Wilson. I want to get to running back and then a question about Noah Fant. Real quickly about Russell Wilson, based on his skill set, because I didn't really get a good, clear answer from the beat writer from Denver. Well, he gave me his answer, but maybe I don't agree with it, so I want to hear another answer. He thinks it's going to be more Judy, but Judy hasn't really done anything, and that's probably because he got injured a bit, and then he had bad quarterbacks thrown into him. Do you think that based on Russell Wilson, the way his skill set, is he going to be looking for the bigger Cortland Sutton, or is he going to be looking more for the Judy? Because it almost feels like Metcalf and Lockett all over again. Where do you think he's going to be throwing more? Who do you think he's going to be connecting with more?
That's a good question because definitely here, Russ was connected to Tyler Lockett. Him and Lockett just had this crazy in-sync thing. Like when everything was going bad, if he just gets the ball to Lockett will find a way to catch the ball. So, yeah, which one's it going to be? Obviously it's hard to know, not having really seen these guys, what's his chemistry going to be with.
Based on knowing Russell.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's Russ is Russ likes to throw the deep ball. And
Yeah.
so, whichever of these two guys is going to have the better hands. I mean, I don't know that really between the two, who would you say is the better possession receiver? Like if you had to throw a ball and you know that this guy's got to make a catch on the sideline, who's going to be more reliable, Judy
It's probably
or
Judy.
Sutherland?
Probably Judy
So I feel like out of the gates
on
that's
paper.
going to be the likely target for him. So, because that's what it's been when he had Doug Baldwin, same thing. Tyler
Yep.
Lockett is a lot in the same sort of way where it's the guy that you can count on that if he just throws it up there somewhere in the area, he'll come down with it. And DK Metcalf struggled sometimes with coming down with the ball when he had to come down with it. So I feel like whichever the most reliable, best hands receiver is going to be, it's going to be that one that he'll lean to. And if it's
Uh,
Judy from that standpoint, then that's
that's
probably
what
the way he's going to lean.
all the signs are pointing to Judy, and that's a coin toss. Now Sutton's coming off a little bit higher in draft simply because of the Judy off-field thing, but it seems like it's all
Right.
under control now, and
It
I don't think
sounds like, yeah, it sounds like they dropped the charges, so
think
it
so.
sounds like it won't be an issue by the
He'll
time
be
the
good.
season
He'll be
comes
good.
around.
All right, now moving on to running backs. Okay, Chris Carson, big question here. You probably saw the picture of the plate in his just behind his Adam's apple. I don't know if those are real. They should be real pictures. He's got like a plate. I'll put it up here. Maybe I'll add it here to the video. But like that's not good. Like obviously, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's crazy. It's crazy. Like I can't imagine I'd want to play with a plate in my throat. Like I don't know, on my
Chris
neck.
Carson Chris Carson has been one of my favorite running backs with Seattle, and I've been a fan of his since he's been here. 7th round guy, didn't expect much from him, and he loved the way he runs. But the problem is he's always had injuries that he's had to deal with at some point. Whether it be a leg or ankle or a knee or something. But this is a whole different thing. A neck injury is not something you can just tough out and rehab and muscle your way back into. If you look at the history of players who are in those positions that have neck injuries, don't have to go any further than Seattle. I think of Max Strong, the great fullback who played during the Sean Alexander days. As soon as he had a neck issue flare up, boom, he retired. Cam Chancellor had a neck issue in that last team that he played. Boom, he retired. Cliff Averill on a play that didn't even look that big of a deal, landed on it funny, uh, neck injury, boom, he was gone. So, I mean, just those three cases, as soon as that neck even became part of the conversation, their careers were over. And at the running back
Yeah,
position, he's taken on hits. He's going head on with guys. As much as I'd love to see him back, I just don't see it happening. And the vibe I'm getting from the press conferences I've read, reading between the lines, it sounds like the Seahawks don't feel very optimistic about him returning either. So I don't think it's going to happen. I'm kind of thinking if there's even a risk that something catastrophic could happen if he played. I would hope he wouldn't take the
yeah.
chance.
I wouldn't take
As
the
much as
chance.
I'd like to see him play from a fan standpoint, but from a realistic standpoint, it just doesn't sound like a good bet. So my feeling is if I had to gun to the head, pick one, I feel like Chris Carson's not going to be there come September.
That's sad, man, because he's a really talented player. It's one of those guys that really talented, just never really got it full. He never saw his full potential, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so from a fantasy perspective, again, I'm not excited about Rashad Penny. Years to hours run out wild. He came on strong near the end of the last season. Then you bring in Kenneth Walker. Ken Walker run away with this starting job? Volume perspective, can he be a workhorse, or is Penny going to be a thorn in his side? Is going to be a two-headed monster there? DJ Dallas is there. Homer's there. I think Travis Homer, I believe. How does this play out here? Can he be a workhorse? Walker.
I think he's going to have to be. I personally, as much as I loved what Rashad Penny did down the stretch, he was mostly unavailable to the Seahawks for most of his short career so far, and he just made the most of those last 3-4 months, and just I think that's what everybody hoped he would do when he first was drafted, but he just has never been able to stay on the field. So can he stay on the field all year? I hope so. But I wouldn't count on it because history kind of tells you a little bit more about what the real picture is. Kenneth Walker, I feel like that's my hope for the shock of not the shock, but the surprise player or the star player who comes out of the draft. As much as Seattle did a lot of great moves this year, I feel like he's the one that if I were to pick one, like who's the guy who's going to come out and go, wow, I didn't expect this guy to be so good.
Yeah.
He's the guy who got circled because just his running style, his speed, his quickness, he can do a lot of great things. And I feel like it's going to come down to him because, again, Chris Carson probably not playing. Rashad Penny at some point is going to get hurt. He's going to be the number one guy.
Uh,
And the guys, as you mentioned, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, they're good filler backs, but these guys aren't the every game, every down type of guys. So it's going to come down to really Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker. And I'm really excited to see if Kenneth Walker can be everything that they hope him to be. In much the same way that they wanted that for Rashad Penny. But when they picked Rashad Penny, when they drafted him, and we were all like, what? You picked him where? First pick,
Right.
first round? What? But when they went with Kenneth Walker, it was like, okay, we feel like we have the need. And of all the running backs who were available, he felt like that was the best fit. So while there was a lot of, I think, people criticizing that from a Seahawks perspective, I loved the move. And so I'm really hopeful in what this guy can do. And I feel like if he can really get things going in the offensive line, open some holes for him, that'll take a lot of pressure off the quarterback. And, we might have the ability to surprise some.
You got me excited. I'm actually on my Instagram right now. I'm going to go on story mode during this recording, and they can't hear you, Norb, but hey guys, listen, I'm just doing a video with Seahawks ambassador here, Norb Cam, and we both discovered that Kenneth Walker is a big time running back sleeper. You heard it here first. Norb, give him a thumbs up. They can't hear you. There you go. Kenneth Walker. There you go.
Yeah, baby.
So I had to get that out right now because there's so much. I'm excited. There's a sleeper there. So volume could be there. Now, you said the O-line is a little bit better. We could have something here, a big time sleeper. I was already kind of high on him, but again, the Chris Carson thing was kind of thing. And then Penny, I'm not really too concerned about, but now you've kind of reassured my belief here.
I just feel like by default, he's going to be the guy because Chris won't likely be there. Rashad Penny at some point won't. And this has been the pattern for like the last several years. Every time we think, oh man, we got so many running backs, we got too many. And all of a sudden, oh God, they're all injured. We got to get Marshawn Lynch in here. That's what happened literally in 2019 or whatever that year is. I think it was 19 when we had to bring Lynch back. So, I mean, it's nuts how injury the situations can just completely blow apart your running backs at your running back room. But I'm hoping that now one thing that concerned me was during the early organized team activities, Kenneth Walker had to sit out with a hamstring thing. I was like, man, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. We're not even started. So I don't want to hear about Kenneth Walker having early injury issues. So I'm a little concerned about that. But I feel like in the end, if that guy can stay healthy, he's going to get a bulk of the lion's share of the run game. And I feel like the Seahawks are going to want to run the ball. They drafted him for a reason. I think he's going to get the carries, and I think he's got the potential to really break out and use him as their battering ram weapon to try to win some of these games, because they're not going to be able to rely on Russell Wilson to bring him back in the fourth quarter with his arm. So let's run the ball.
And how about Noah Fant? Do you think Locke or Smith? And by the way, at the beginning of the show, I was making a joke. I know who Drew Locke is and Geno Smith.
I know.
Some people may not have picked out. You don't know their names?
But we don't know. Yeah, we know their names, but we really don't know what they can do. I mean, I know what Geno Smith can do. I've seen enough of him that I know what he's capable of. Drew Locke, I really have no idea. I can only go off of what I've seen, but I feel like he's also gotten a bad, start in Denver. So, maybe he's got something that we just haven't seen. But, would I bet my money on it? Probably not. But yeah, as far as Noah Fant, I am excited about that. That was one of the pieces that, when we got in the Russell Wilson trade, as much as it was hard to not see anything else, but knowing that Russell was leaving, Noah Fant coming to the Seahawks. One thing I am optimistic about, and this is the thing with Russ too, is that Russ has never really developed that strong tight end combination. There's a lot of teams where you got, whenever things get bad, just Brady to Gronk, that they can always count on that quarterback 10. Yeah, exactly. Russell never quite had that. And we always wonder why is he not utilizing the tight end? Well, I do think that some of the height thing might actually factor into some of those things. Now, we've been living it for 10 years and we just kind of accept who Russ was. But I have had to think that, I think there's some reason why he doesn't make some of those throws is because he doesn't see it. So flip that around to where we are now. Noah Fant, who I've heard some things, people saying that this could be what they thought Jimmy Graham would be when we first brought Jimmy Graham to Seattle. Obviously, You mentioned Jimmy Graham. People go, oh, God, that was a disaster. Well, now they're bringing comparisons to Noah Fant that he could be that type of player at the tight end position that we haven't seen, that Russ was never able to take advantage of. And so you get, these guys are now a little bit taller. They can see over the line. I feel like that his timing coming in here will actually work better with the skill sets of these two quarterbacks that we have, whichever one we go with, because I just think also with the Shane Waldron system, I think if those guys really truly buy in and, and they look to utilize him in the way that they know that they can, I think Noah Fant could really, take, again, a lot of the pressure off of, things that we just haven't been able to utilize before because we didn't really take advantage of the tight end during the time that Russell's been here. So I'm looking forward to Noah Fant making a big time contribution to Seattle from the position that's been widely sort of absent in the Seahawks offense.
Well, Norb, man, I appreciate you coming out. I feel for you this year. I really do. I mean, it hurts to have Russell, but I just appreciate it. It's like you had him, but you had him kind of in his prime. But I still think there's more Russell Wilson to be had. I hate to say that to you, but you still had him in his prime. He did a lot for Seattle. Now we have to move on, Norb. We got to move. I wish I could play some sentimental music here for you.
We do have to move on. I feel like I'm getting over it, but then when we start actually playing games again, all the old wounds will probably all split open, and I'll realize I'm not over him. I'm just fooling myself. but it's kind of cool though. You bring up you got to celebrate the past though. And what I realized is today was actually 25 years ago is when the Seattle voters or Washington voters voted to keep the Seahawks in Seattle and allowed Paul Allen to take over the team and build the stadium, which was built 20 years ago this year. So Seahawks, Lumen Field, the place where we go to now, that's 20 years. That's going to be 20 years old because inaugural year is 2002. So here we are, 2022. 20 years that stadium has been up. And it was 25 years ago when the team was saved by Paul Allen and stayed here in Seattle. So again, why the reasons, no matter who's a quarterback, no matter who's coaching or running back, it's the team, man. It's the green and the blue. And I've been here through all the thick and thin and the bad years and the great years, and we'll continue to do so. So no matter what,
let's go Hawks. And that inside information, Kenneth Walker, guys, fantasy football sleeper, and he's a great value. Just stash him as the RB4-5 on your roster. You're potentially getting an RB1 with an improved O-line. You heard it right here, guys. Norb Cam, go give him a follow. Thanks, Norb.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man.
Watch the full Impact series below to hear what other guys have to say about their teams. Talk soon.